All right, it's 8:30. I'll call to order the Board of Franklin County Commissioners meeting for April 29th.
Commissioner Stottlemyre.
Present.
Commissioner Howard.
Present.
Chair Waymire.
Present.
Commissioner Dickinson.
Present.
Commissioner Dunn.
Present.
All right, if you'd all join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
Allegiance to the flag of
United
the
States of
United
America,
States of America and to the republic for which stands one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. Our invocation today will be led by Pastor Kim Wilcox from the North Baptist Church in Ottawa. Go ahead.
All right. Well, Lord, we thank you for this day. And Father, I pray for each one of our commissioners. I know that they have been under some extreme pressure with all that's going on, Father, with the trying times that we have. And Father, I pray for each one that you would provide just divine wisdom for them as they continue to make decisions that truly do reach far and beyond what they ever imagined they'd ever be called to do. And so, Father, I pray your hand upon them, that you would use this time to draw them to you, and then to give you, for you to give them just the answers that they need for each and everything. And Father, not just for this great pandemic that we're experiencing, but just the decisions they make on a daily basis, that Father, that they would be pleasing to you. And Father, we thank you for the way they serve our county, Father, for the way that they stand up under pressure, and so we just ask that you would just continue to bless them. And Father, even today, as they go through this meeting today, whatever comes up, that you would just be with them and help them to know and understand all that you have for them. So Lord, we just give this time to you. We thank you for each one individually. Thank you for our county and all the other elected officials, our public safety, the first responders, our hospital workers and doctors and nurses as they deal with this as well. So Lord, we just thank you for all that you do for us. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen.
All right. Thank you, Pastor. Appreciate you. Appreciate your time. Moving down the list to correspondence and organizational business. Derek?
I don't have anything, Commissioner Waymire. Thank you.
All right. Clerk, do we have any public comment today? Janet, do we have any public comment?
I'm stuck. No, oh, sorry, no.
All right.
My screen was frozen. Sorry.
All right. Consent agenda today would include minutes from our April 22nd meeting, payroll in the amount of $1,160,201.07, tax change orders in a negative amount of $177.74. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
This is Roy. I make the motion to approve the consent agenda.
All right. Is there a second?
Commissioner Dickinson.
This is Commissioner. Go ahead.
I think Ian had it. Go ahead, Ian.
Commissioner Dickinson, I'm seconding it.
All right.
This is Clerk Paddock. Commissioner Stottlemyre, how do you vote?
Yes.
Commissioner Howard?
Yes.
Commissioner Dickinson?
Yes.
Commissioner Dunn?
Yes.
Chair Waymire?
Yes. All right. This is Colt. Our first item of business is to consider approval of the Kansas Department of Corrections fiscal year 2021 Adult Comprehensive Plan Grant application. We should have Dustin Browning on from the Community Corrections Department.
Yes.
Dustin, are you on?
Yes, I am. Can you hear me?
Yep. Go ahead with your item.
Good morning, Commissioners. This is Dustin Browning. Our first item this morning is for approval of the KDOC Adult Comprehensive Plan Grant for fiscal year 2021. This is in the amount of $417,354.92, and this goes to fund adult community correctional services for fiscal year 21. That's a decrease from the current fiscal year, in which we were awarded $430,000 in change. This new plan for fiscal year 21 is derived from data that we compiled over fiscal year 19, which shows us some gaps that we have between our successful and unsuccessful probationer population. That data and those gaps are what are going to drive our plan going forward. And so the plan encompasses those things. And one of the chief areas of that is that we will begin to implement cognitive behavioral programming, which aims to help offenders think in a more pro-social and non-criminal way. And so if there are any questions, I'll gladly stand for them at this time.
This is Commissioner Dunn. Dustin, how do you handle things now with the virus going on?
Yeah, that's a good question. This is Dustin Browning again. Since last month, we have been operating remotely, all of our staff, and we've done call-in reporting with all of the offenders, and that's what a lot of agencies across the state have done as well. And so our officers are having call forwarding from their office phones to their personal phones, and they're able to do their contacts with their clients in that manner. So we're doing no face-to-face contacts at this time. We're not doing any drug testing or anything like that, and we haven't been for a while. But like I said, that's consistent with a lot of agencies across the state.
Thank you.
Any other questions for Dustin? All right, this is Commissioner Waymire. A motion in support of this item would read as I make a motion to approve the fiscal year 2021 Kansas Department of Corrections Adult Comprehensive Plan Grant application. Would anyone like to make a motion to that effect?
This is Don. I'll make the approve.
All right, Don had the motion. Would anyone like to make second?
Commissioner Howard, I'll second it.
All right.
This is Janet. Chair Howard, how do you vote? I'm sorry.
Not,
Chair Howard.
I vote yes.
Commissioner Dickinson,
Yes.
Commissioner Dunn,
Yes.
Yes.
Oh, no.
Commissioner
that-
Stottlemyre,
Yes, I'm Stottlemyre.
Chair Waymire.
Yes. All right. This is Commissioner Waymire. Dustin, go ahead and introduce your second item.
Thank you again, Commissioners. This is Dustin Browning. And the second item we have this morning is for our behavioral health grant plan for fiscal year 21. This plan and grant are a little bit different from the adult and juvenile plans in that KDOC does not give us a set amount dollar-wise that we're allotted to spend. Instead, we ask for a certain amount of funding, and that funding is either denied or approved. And whatever amount we are approved for, we'll then have to make our budget accordingly. What we're asking for this year is $132,140, and this goes to fund 2 on-site clinicians that we have from Elizabeth Layton Center, as well as evaluations, treatment, and referrals. We currently only have 1 care coordinator who is a clinician from ELC, but that person is currently at a full caseload, and we are asking for this funding to expand the care coordination program. In years past, we've actually had 2 care coordinators and it worked well, and so we're asking KDOC to fund that to that level again. And at this time, I'll stand for any questions you might have.
Commissioner Waymire, I don't hear any questions. Affirmative motion in support of this item would read as I make a motion to approve the fiscal year 2021 Kansas Department of Corrections Behavioral Grant Plan. Would anyone like to make a motion to that effect?
Commissioner Dickinson, I would make that motion.
All right. Is there a second?
Commissioner Dunn, second.
All right.
This is Janet. Commissioner Dickinson, how do you vote?
Yes.
Commissioner Dunn,
Yes.
Commissioner Stottlemyre,
Yes.
Commissioner Howard,
Yes.
Chair Waymire.
Yes. This is Commissioner Waymire, and our third item also lies with you, Dustin. Go ahead.
All right, thank you. Again, this is Dustin Browning, and the third item we have this morning is for approval of our Juvenile Justice Comprehensive Plan Grant. This goes to fund graduated sanctions for juvenile offenders. And we were allotted $345,000 or $345,063, pardon, for these services, as well as $39,507.40 for prevention services, and that is our truancy court program in the district. New this year with this plan is a JCAB funded position or an evidence-based position. And with this new source of funding, Elizabeth Layton Center is applying for $80,000 from this source to provide the same care coordination services as I described in our adult plan for juvenile offenders. And that would go towards not only community corrections clients, but also court services clients and juveniles that are housed in the JDC to provide them some mental health and care coordination services as well. This funding is flat as far as the dollar amount goes and has been for several years. The juvenile funding at the state level just hasn't changed, especially with all of the changes in the last several years with their reform. So I will stand for any questions at this time.
All right, pretty straightforward. It doesn't look like there's any questions. An affirmative motion in support of this item would read as I make a motion to approve the fiscal year 2021 Kansas Department of Corrections Juvenile Justice Comprehensive Plan Grant application. Would anyone like to make a motion to that effect?
Commissioner Dunn, I approve that motion.
All right, is there a second?
Motion, second. Don?
All right.
This is Janet. Commissioner Dunn, how do you vote?
Yes.
Commissioner Stottlemyre?
Yes.
Commissioner Howard?
Yes.
Commissioner Dickinson?
Yes.
Chair Waymeyer?
Yes. All right, this is Commissioner Waymeyer. Our fourth item of business would be to replenish our county road department's road salt stock. David Lee, are you on?
Yes, Commissioners. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. So every year we have the good fortune of working with Douglas County. They coordinate salt bidding for about, there's a total of 8 of us that participate in this bid. And we've been doing this for several years now, and we did so again. So the bid results this year, Hutchison Salt Company was the low bidder this particular year at a cost of $54 a ton, and we're estimating that we need approximately 1,100 tons. And so we would like to move forward with accepting that bid, which brings a grand total of $59,400 of total expenditure. It is quite possible that once we start taking delivery of that salt, that our facility is, that we reach capacity before we get to the 1,100 tons. So just like we did last year, we would like to move forward with this so that we can replenish our salt so that we're ready to go when winter hits this year.
All right. Any questions for David? This is a pretty straightforward item we do every year.
Yeah, this is Commissioner Dickinson. I just have a question on what was our salt usage this year compared to last year, since we didn't have such
much less.
Yeah.
We had several different weather events this year, but it was nothing compared to what we experienced last year, thankfully.
Yeah.
All right. Good to know. Would anyone like to make a motion to approve awarding the salt bid to Hutchison Salt Company in the amount of $59,400?
Commissioner Howard, I'll make the motion.
All right, thank you. Would anyone like to second the motion?
Commissioner Dunn, second.
This is Janet. Commissioner Howard, how do you vote?
Yes.
Commissioner Dickinson?
Yes.
Commissioner Dunn?
Yes.
Commissioner Stottlemyre?
Yes.
Chair Waymeyer?
Yes. This is Commissioner Waymeyer. Our fifth item deals with the proposal for engineering services for the landfill. Go ahead, David.
Okay, Commissioners, in reviewing landfill files early last week, I discovered that the last volume and life expectancy calculation for the landfill was made in August of 2017. And at that time, the report indicated a remaining life of 12 to 18 years, depending on future volumes and compaction. Seeing that our data was that old, and in fact, the August 2017 calculation was made on survey data from 2014. So the data that they were using was outdated at that point. And so we had a life expectancy of 12 to 18 years at that time, depending on future volumes and compaction methods, like I mentioned. So when I discovered that, I immediately asked SCS engineers, and I will mention that SCS, they are the firm that Aquaterra back in 2005 was the company that the county hired to go through the permitting process for our current, the 3 current cells at the landfill. Aquaterra was acquired by SCS. Those folks have the data, they have, and the personnel that was there in 2005. So they have been with us since the get-go. So last week I asked them to look at doing a preliminary calculation based on the updated volumes that we've experienced the last few years. So they sent me a revised or a preliminary life expectancy calculation, which is attached to your packet. That was based on both the 10-year average of the tonnage that arrived at our C&D landfill, and also the 2019 volume, which was over 11,000 tons. I believe that was a record high. So I asked them to analyze that information and let me know what the life expectancy was based on that data. And at that time, they reported back that we have as little as 8 years before we run out of capacity at the landfill. 8 years is not a long time in the future. So we really want to make sure that we are doing things, spending dollars wisely and planning for that future. So I'm recommending that we update the mapping and to get an accurate and current life expectancy calculation from SCS. And through that process, they will be able to determine what our density is of the material that we have been putting in the landfill. So they will take the surface model from 2005, that's the basis for everything that they will do. And with this new topography that we will collect during this process, they will be able to analyze the difference between the surface elevations of 2005 and the surface elevations of 2020. That will be, they will take that along with our scale house records, and they will compile all this information and eventually be able to tell us approximately how many years we have left in that landfill. And so depending on what that information tells us, this may be an exercise that I want to do every year or every other year moving forward, so that we are not waiting till the last minute to begin planning for future expansion of the C&D landfill. And so that's really, we need this data to make good decisions going forward, and that's what I'm asking for today.
This is Commissioner Waymire. This practice will also tell us how efficient our current compaction method is also, won't it?
That is correct. We have a number based on the old data, and we will be able to compare that to compare the new number to the old data, and that will definitely help us understand what our current practices are compared to how they were previously. And we will, we've already been planning and making incremental changes in how we go about those things. This will give us additional data to make good decisions going forward again.
This is
Commissioner
Commissioner.
Go ahead, Diane.
This is Commissioner Dickinson. I'm looking at these numbers, and from 2010 to 2016, we were consistently between 3,000 and 4,000 tons, and then 2017 it jumped almost to over 9, and then 8, over 11, and then 8. Do you know? Okay, anybody? I mean, that's a huge jump in the last 4 years.
Yeah, that is mostly attributed to the construction industry has really taken off over the last several years, and so we are seeing more volume at the landfill. And if you notice in the preliminary report for 2020, they're showing 8,100 tons. Now that's only based on the first quarter data. And I will tell you that the first quarter data of 2020 is far exceeding the first quarter data from 2019, which at that time was fairly wet and folks weren't doing a whole lot. But if this trend continues going forward, when we get into the heavy construction season, we may see similar numbers to what we did last year. It just depends on how the construction industry is and the effect of the stay-at-home and the virus order has had on all of this. But we're anticipating, even 8,000 tons is double what the previous projections were. So it's all things that seem to be trending upwards, and so we need to be paying attention to that.
This Commissioner Dunn, the one question I have, will this engineering firm look at expansion at the current site, see if there is room for more?
Yeah, what we're going to be doing here, this is really the first step in a very long process to be able to answer your question. So depending on what this tells us, we will begin looking at those expansion opportunities. We will look at opportunities on site, and it's quite possible that we may have to look off site, and we will go through the analysis part of that at the appropriate time. So that's something that is a step or two down the road for us. But yes, we will definitely be analyzing those things.
All right. Commissioner Waymire, are there any other questions for David? Would anyone like to make a motion in support of this item? That would be to execute the proposal from SCS Engineers in the amount of $14,185 to provide updated topography and an updated volume and life expectancy calculation for the Franklin County Construction and Demolition Landfill.
Commissioner Dickinson, I would make that motion.
Go ahead.
All right.
Commissioner Dunn, second.
All right.
This is Janet. Commissioner Dickinson, how do you vote?
Yes.
Commissioner Dunn?
Yes.
Commissioner Stottlemyre?
Yes.
Commissioner Howard?
Yes.
Chair Waymire?
Yes. All right. This is Commissioner Waymire. This brings us to staff reports. Derek, do you have anything?
Yeah, this is Derek. Before I jump into my report, I want to extend some kudos to David Lee. He's done a lot of, as all of you know, he's done a lot of things incredibly well since he's came on board here. And this landfill thing is just another example. It's easy to look at it today and, you see an expense, but this is going to create the potential opportunity to get a lot more life out of that landfill and save us money in the long run. And I'm incredibly thankful to have him and certainly appreciate his, the way he digs into things and gives us good research into that. So appreciate that. Regarding COVID-19, as most of you are aware, we are expecting to receive guidance from the state tomorrow. We've been waiting on that for some time. We do have a community reopening recommendation prepared. It's based on the same three-phase model that I'm sure most of you have seen. It is in line with what other local governments are doing for the most part. We didn't want to unveil that today because we would no more than do that, and then the state would have guidance tomorrow that would inevitably contradict something that we have. And so we're currently waiting to receive that guidance. We don't know what it's going to be. It seems like the most common speculation is that the state is going to turn it back over to local governments, but with certain hard mandates. For example, the number of people allowed to attend gatherings. We expect to receive a hard mandate from the state for each of those phases. I think they're going to have some mandates about certain types of businesses. But obviously, we're not going to know for sure until we get that guidance. The problem that puts us in, and I called all 5 of you yesterday to convey this to you, is we are going to have a special meeting on Friday because the stay-at-home order is going to expire on Sunday. And so if we don't do something Friday, then we are going to hit Monday and there's going to be no order in place. But because we're not getting our guidance till tomorrow, that basically leaves us one day, and that's Friday. And so I am going to recommend that the board has a special meeting Friday. We can talk about that once we get through staff reports, but I would recommend we do it at 8:30, just like any other meeting. And the sole item will be to discuss the reopening plan. Dr. Ransom will obviously be on that call, as will the rest of the team. We also have put together, in addition to kind of the community reopening plan, we've got a workforce reentry plan that we intend to share with the board. That will deal with, it deals as much with how we're going to open back up county buildings as much as anything. Most of the staff that report to me that are working remotely are doing just fine. You heard from Dustin Browning. He's been tremendous as well, by the way, throughout this. His staff seem to be doing just fine, and there doesn't appear to be a rush at the state level to change the way they're operating. You talk to Sari Maple, our HR director. She'll tell you that her staff are doing just fine. You talk to Dustin, he'll tell you that Dustin Corriton, he'll tell you that his staff are working just fine from home. I think really the only question that I have are with some of the employees in the old courthouse, the appraiser's office, in particular the treasurer's office, given that tax payments are due next month. And so after this meeting at 11 o'clock, I'm going to have a teleconference with the elected officials and department heads in the old courthouse, and we're going to talk more specifically about what their particular needs are. But I would anticipate having that discussion with all of you on Friday as well. We are starting to get a lot of questions again from the community. As you know, when this whole thing first started, we were absolutely inundated with questions. And then when the state implemented their executive orders and basically removed our home rule authority, we watched those questions taper off, but now they are on the rise again. I certainly think the public they're anxious to hear something. Casey's done a tremendous job of communicating our message back out to them. She's been on the phone a lot. She's been responding to emails a lot, just letting them know the situation that I just described regarding waiting on state guidance. But certainly, I think the community is ready to hear something. Alan and Nick and others Alan and Nick particularly, are going to talk a little more about where we're at on the COVID stuff. Transition away from that a little bit. The courthouse is currently being painted. You have an opportunity. I would take a drive by there. I think it's going to look real nice. Pretty pleased with the progress there. And regarding our budget, I have been working with human resources on our personnel numbers. And I'm still making my way through the departments, but generally I'm very pleased with where we're at the moment. The budget that I have currently asked staff to prepare includes the 2.5% for our pay plan. It includes a 1% cost of living raise. And my hope is that, I tell the board all the time, I tell my staff all the time, really like to protect that pay plan at all costs. That's something that we offer that a lot of governments aren't able to in the best of times. And, when Janet and I have worked on the budget over the last few years and we've built up our reserve balances, part of the reason we do that is to try and protect the pay plan and keep it in place. Now, my hope is that we don't even have to crack into reserves to do it. My hope is that the revenues are just there. But I'm fairly pleased with how those numbers are looking right now. And the rest of the budgets are going to be generally flat this year because I think we're all concerned with what this COVID-19 situation is going to do to revenues, but we're progressing pretty nicely on that. Unless you have any questions for me, that's all I have today, and I would turn it over to Alan when you're ready, Colt. Thank you.
I got one question I didn't bring up when Dave was talking there, because we was talking one time again this big compacting machine with like sheet put rollers, and I don't know where that stands right now.
Yeah, I'll defer to David on that.
Commissioner Dunn, I was in the middle of preparing the research information around the possible acquisition of a compactor when this issue with the life expectancy of the landfill came up. And so it's not prudent to move forward with really any capital expense at the landfill until we have solid information on what is happening at the C&D landfill. So once we have that, at that point, that'll point us in a direction and we'll head that way. So it's not out of the question that you may see that sometime down the road, but just not today.
Okay, thank you.
Uh-huh.
This is Commissioner Waymire. This is the landfill, something I've always taken an interest in. One thing about this topographical survey, it'll let us know how efficient our compaction is. So if we're doing a good job of, say, getting a ton of debris in a cubic yard, whatever good is, it wouldn't necessarily be something we would need to invest in more machinery. But if we're doing a really poor job, leaving a lot of meat on the bone, or our compaction just isn't very good, we would know just what there is to gain from buying a specialized piece of equipment, how much money we could save this way with this engineering company doing what they're doing. So, would you agree, David?
Yes, sir. That's exactly right.
So, that'll be nice to be able to quantify the reason for why we would be potentially making such a large investment in a new compaction piece of equipment. So, all right, Alan, are you on?
Yes, I am. Can you hear me?
Sure can. Go ahead.
Well, I think Derek did a pretty good job of summarizing where we're at. I think the whole team is a little bit frustrated, as well as with all these calls that we're getting from community, the businesses, the school districts. We've got calls from the Fair Board and all of our big events that have gone on typically throughout the year. The one thing that I really want to reiterate to everybody, the county commission and also to the public, is the fact that when the guidance comes out Thursday from the state, and then when our county guidance comes out for next week, just because the stay-at-home order is lifted doesn't mean that we're done with COVID-19 and things go back to normal. I know that for emergency management, one of our goals, and it's really our primary goal, is to get things back to normal as quickly as possible. It's a little bit different with a pandemic and with this COVID-19 response, because I think normal is going to be a little bit different for everybody after this, and that this incident is also going to last throughout the rest of this year and maybe even into next year. We don't know that yet. And I know that we're going to have more positive cases as we go through the summer. And that's the part of the plan that I really want the public to understand is we're looking at a three-phase approach on trying to get back to normal or as close to normal as possible. But if we do see a big surge in positive cases because of large gatherings or community spread with this, we're going to drop back a phase or two. So it's going to be a fluid, I can see the summer being very fluid, and hopefully we don't have those issues. But in our plan, I think we're going to have the guidance for the community and for our community leaders and the county commission that will allow us to move back and forth if we need to in this plan. And that's about all I have to say, unless you have any questions.
All right, we're going to move on to Nick.
Good morning,
Are you on there, Nick?
Yes.
Go ahead.
I have a few things here. We'll start with COVID response. The health department and Casey worked, and Dr. Ransom worked to come up with a survey to be sent out to on Facebook.
Commissioner Dunn, there's sound problems there.
There is. Nick, we're having trouble hearing you. Are you on your phone? Maybe you could adjust where you're at.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, it's a little better. Go. Let's try again.
Okay, sorry about that. We have put together a survey that was sent out on Facebook. The method for the survey was to get us information on who would be willing to be tested if we had the opportunity to do a randomized testing. But we also wanted to get some demographics on individuals in the county. We were shooting. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. We were shooting for 10% of the community. We ended up with 2,765 results for people that filled out the survey. Like I said, the survey, we asked the occupation. One of the big things we wanted to know is how many people commute outside of the county. So on Friday, we plan to have the results of this put together to give you a good idea of what the percentages are and what we're looking at when we open back up. Other than that, we do have 14. We have had 14 positive cases. 13 of those have recovered. As of yesterday, 272 negative tests back. The OFP staff, Dr. Ransom, Health Department staff have been great to work with as we're continuing to look forward on what it would look like to do some random math testing. And we're still weeks out on that, but we are working diligently to figure that out. That is pretty much where I'm at on COVID right now. I do have some really good. Can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead.
I do have some really good news. I know last week I talked to you and said we were in the final stages of the ACE accreditation for the Communications Center. This week we found out that we are the 279th ACE Medical Communications Center accredited center. So as I said, ACE accreditation is worldwide. There's only 279 of them in the world, and we're one of them. There's only 193 in the United States. There's only 2 now in the state of Kansas. That's us in Butler County. So that's a humongous recognition of dispatchers for the county and what we're doing. So I did want to make sure to let you guys know that we did achieve that, and that's very exciting.
Hey, Nick, this is Derek. It's my understanding regarding accreditation that this is something that is actively being sought by your Johnson counties, your Shawnee counties, and some of your other bigger counties, but they've just been unable to attain it at this point. Is that correct?
That is correct. I think everybody is shooting to try to meet these measures. The measures for this accreditation process are huge. And it's with call volume, with making sure you ask every question verbatim, it's tough to do. So we put a lot of work into it, and there's a lot of centers in the state that are trying, but they just can't break that hump.
This is Commissioner Dickinson. Congratulations on that. But I have a question about testing, and this is really probably my biggest pet peeve through this all, is that we've shut down the county for 7 weeks, and from the very beginning, they've always said testing is vital, testing, and yet we're still several weeks out to have the testing that we need. I mean, everybody is, not just us. It's just frustrating that if this is so important, we've had 7 weeks to figure it out and nothing's been done.
Oh yeah, I share your frustrations on this, and if you remember right, I was talking serum testing at the beginning of the response, and we did get in testing from a vendor. The FDA took that off, and we had to send it back. OFP has been able to secure a different form of testing. We're still 2 weeks out from getting that in. There's just so many tests out there. The tests have been proven to be inaccurate. So we've got to walk such a slippery slope on what it looks like. The antibody testing could come back and show you're positive, and when you're not, because it picks up a different strain of coronavirus. So we're actively working on that. I will tell you, as far as the testing that we're doing on people we feel might have it, or our triage has greatly increased. In the beginning of this, if you remember, we throw a lot of presumed positives out there, and we weren't able to test the ones that we thought were positive because there wasn't enough testing at that time. We are actively testing those people now, and that has picked up. So the ability to test people that are actively having COVID or meet the requirement has been able to be increased. We're just waiting for some kind of a test to look for antigens or a way to know that these individuals are active. So that's kind of where we're at.
This is Commissioner Waymire. All right, Nick, your audio is starting to get a little poor again. I didn't hear you clearly when you said what was the total number of respondents on your survey?
2,765.
All right, so your goal was 10%, so out of 26,000 population, you made your 10%, so that's good.
We did, and like I said, the results are very interesting. I'm looking forward to finalizing those and having you some information on Friday.
Great. Any questions for Nick?
Hey, Colt, this is
This is
Derek.
Commissioner-
Go ahead, Rick.
No, you're all right. Go ahead.
I was just going
Let's go ahead, Commissioner.
This is Commissioner Howard. I just have a question. I just have a comment. I'm kind of like Commissioner Dickinson. I'm kind of frustrated with this. As Derek said earlier, we won't really know until tomorrow what the state's plan is, but everything I see is from the medical side of it is saying it's too early. We shouldn't be lifting these orders and stuff. Seems like we're going to do it anyway. I'm just, after all these weeks of doing this, I see no sign from what I read that Kansas is anywhere near to the peak and on the downside. And it seems like we're still going to do this. But I did see on the news this morning before we started this meeting that from the medical field in Georgia, which lifted most of theirs, said they've more than doubled since they lifted that. And they're getting swamped at the hospitals, they said this morning with it. So I just hope the state, takes that into consideration. I'm sure they will, but I feel as a county, we still have to protect ourselves, and I know we're going to too. So that was just my comment.
All right, Derek, go ahead.
Yeah, Commissioner Howard, I appreciate those comments and certainly wholeheartedly agree with them. I was going to speak to Commissioner Dickinson's frustration, and I completely agree with you, Ian. It's hard for me to say this because I'm very frustrated with the state right now, but the lack of testing, that transcends the state of Kansas, and that has been an issue at the federal level. That's been an issue at the federal level from the very beginning. My understanding is the state of Kansas as a whole has been unable to get the tests that they need, primarily because of our numbers. I mean, lower population, relatively speaking, leads to lower amounts of cases. And so, we're not New York, we're not Seattle, we're not LA. And so that's really hurt our ability on a statewide level to get those tests. But it is incredibly frustrating, and this whole three-phase model, the whole premise of opening back up is that we can do it if we aggressively test and aggressively contact trace. But my concern is we still don't have the tests we need. I mean, Nick's done a great job. We have more tests than we've ever had. But if this does uptick, and Commissioner Howard's right, the communities that have lowered their restrictions have invariably seen a rise in this, and Franklin County, there's no reason for us to believe that we're going to be an exception. So the concern is, are we going to have access to the resources that we need to do the amount of testing and the contact tracing if we do see that uptick? And I certainly hope that we do, but that's an unknown at this point. Thank you.
This is Commissioner Dickinson. I have one more comment. So when we put the stop order on, we were flattening the curve. There is no way, whether we wait a month or 2 months or 3 months, that we are going to stop the curve. We are flattening the curve, and if you wait a month to open back up, you're going to have an increase. If you wait 2 months and open back up, you're going to have an increase. Whenever you do it, you're going to have an increase. What we were hoping is that when we flatten the curve, that we would be able to have our health resources in place so that they could take care of this. And that's really what we need to be talking about on Friday, I think. And that's it.
All right. before we move past Nick, does anybody have any, this is Commissioner Waymire, does anybody have any questions for Nick? All right. Thanks for your time, Nick. Next down the list, Sheriff Jeff Richards. Are you on?
Yeah, this is Jeff. I don't really have anything to report. We have been working as well about getting our reentry or reopening plan in place. But again, until we have everything from the state and we have that meeting with Derek and the whole team, I don't really have anything to report there. But I would answer any questions that commissioners may have.
All right. Doesn't look like we have any questions for the sheriff. Thank you, Jeff. Thanks for being on this morning. Janet Paddock.
Good morning, Commissioner. So as we continue with our county buildings being closed, I am meeting with various department heads and finalizing their budgets. As Derek said in the beginning of staff reports, he did ask all of the department heads to stay flat in their budgets, and they are doing a really great job of doing that. All we're seeing right now is the increase in their personnel numbers, but they are trying to more accurately report in their budget. As in the past few years, we've been able to get more information and encourage different departments to track different things more appropriately. So we are working on that. One challenge this year is going to be figuring out the grant funding situation for the health department. As Midge left and held a lot of that information on grants, Nick and I are working very closely with Robert and Aaron in the health department to make sure that all those grants were filed for, and that we're going to be following up on those and making sure that we're doing everything we can to continue to receive the revenue that we've been receiving to fund different programs at the health department. So that's been a work in progress definitely this week, and we'll move forward with that. Of course, staying on top of that as we move forward and make sure that we're communicating with the state, where most of our grants come from, is going to be a big thing. In addition to working on budgets, I've been working a lot on election information. As you guys know, this creates a lot of challenges and a lot of questions for people when it comes to voting. And with this being a presidential election year, everyone wants to make sure that they have access to voting. And that is very important to me also. So I have reached out to all of our senior living facilities in the county, and I'm working with their staff to make sure that those people living in those homes have access to voting without having to get out of their homes and potentially come in contact with the virus any more than what they're susceptible to it at their current living facility. So I'm going to be working with them to get programs together. I'm also going to be, in the next couple weeks, reaching out to all of our polling locations. I understand that it could be a challenge for some of our polling locations, and just want to make sure that we're meeting their expectations as far as cleanliness and all of those things when we're going to have a lot of people coming through their facilities. We have really great partners throughout the community that allow us to utilize their buildings, and so we just want to make sure that we're being good partners in that respect. Definitely, probably the biggest challenge this year is going to be finding poll workers, and we're trying to look for every avenue right now to reach out to people and find poll workers, because the majority of ours are in that susceptible age group of 65 and older. So definitely, if anyone knows anyone who's interested or knows a group of people that might be temporarily out of work and would be willing to help with that, I'm interested in hearing about that. Of course, I'm working with Alan and Tom to make sure that if we need it, that we have PPE to provide to my election workers. and have, you know, just adequate hand sanitizer and all of that on site. So that's all I have. If anyone has any questions.
What's the date of our next election?
The primary is the first Tuesday in August.
August, all right. Any questions for Janet? Thank you, Janet. David Lee.
Yes, Commissioners, just a couple of quick updates. The dust control program for 2020 is complete now. We finished that up last week. The survey work for the Virginia Road Erosion Control Project just north of Lane is scheduled to be started just any time. I'm starting to hear from their folks, so they should be collecting data here soon. On the Iowa Terrace project, that project is still hanging out there. I've had a heck of a time connecting with one of the landowners to acquire an easement. Was finally able to do that this week, and so here soon I hope to be asking for approval to move forward with that project, hopefully in the next week or so. And then we have all of our needed permits for the Haskell Terrace low water crossing. I'm sorry, it's the Haskell Road low water crossing. So we've gotten the permits from Division of Water Resources, the Corps of Engineers, and the Kansas Department of Wildlife, Parks and Tourism all had to sign off on that before we could get started. So that's another project that we will do in-house here. It may be June before we get started on that, just to make sure that the heavy rains are over with. So that's kind of a quick update on the bigger projects, the regular work. We continue to work on washouts and repairing ditches and that sort of thing. We've done 3 of them in the last week, along with some shoulder work on Vermont Road north of Thomas. And tomorrow on Louisiana Terrace north of Riley, there's a small wooden structure and that goes up Louisiana Terrace to where the minimum maintenance road is, and there's, I don't know, 7 or 8 houses back in there. And last year during the floods, they had a hard time being able to get out of there because of the structure that was in place. And so tomorrow we're going to pull out that small wood structure and put a couple of large diameter tubes in there and really make that a much safer location for those folks to live. And we'll also, as a part of that project, we'll also replace a crossroad tube at the intersection of Louisiana Terrace and Riley that will make that whole area a much better, much safer location for those folks to live and travel. So in addition to that, you know, we're still hauling rock to our roads throughout the county and making improvements to the road service. And we've been doing quite a bit of road patching all over the county the last couple of weeks as well. So we are gaining.
All right. Any questions for David?
I got this, Commissioner Dunn, a question for David. I think need to take a look at the bridge over Toy Creek on Montana Road. The north side of that bridge is deteriorating fast. The approach has dropped at least 1 inch to 2 inches below the bridge deck, and I think it needs to be evaluated so it doesn't have an Idaho road happening at that location.
We'll get out and take a look at that immediately.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Not hearing any other questions. We'll move down to commissioners' comments and board reports. Commissioner Stottlemyre.
Yeah, I haven't been attending any meetings, of course, with our 10-person deal. I don't want to violate that. But I did get an email while we were on, and you guys have probably all got it too. It's safety restarting our counties from Brandon Mann from K-Work. it's a loss prevention manager for us. You might want to review that and look that all over before our meeting Friday. It's not an absolute, but it's just another. It's somebody that we actually pay to keep that going, and we do. He is a representative of us as the state of Kansas and K-Work. So whether it's right or wrong, I can't answer that. But you should have all got an email on it. It came right after our meeting started, so you might all want to look that over before Friday. That's it.
All right. Commissioner Dickinson?
This is Commissioner Dickinson, just trying to keep up on all the information that I can as far as COVID-19 with the decisions that we have to make. I did listen again to the governors with elected officials on Friday. I did make a request to Derek, and I would like to put it out there that this meeting on Friday I'm feeling is very important, and I'd like to see it being held in the commission chambers. I don't know what you all feel about that, but I feel like having us all in one room and being able to discuss this would be preferable to being out and about anyway, and that's all I have.
All right. This is Commissioner Waymire. I was going to bring that up when it came down to my time. But as far as, I guess, how the meeting's held, generally that's going to lie with the chair. So my thoughts on that, your chair is still here. You're welcome to attend in person. Kind of the default is still going to be, and I'm going to expect staff to call in. We're still going to hold the meeting over Zoom. So if any commissioner wants to come and sit in their chair, they're welcome to. But the meeting, I see no reason to not do over teleconference. So that will be the default. And that's I guess what I'd come up with on that. Let me know as we go down the rest of the list if you object to that, if you absolutely disagree, but thinking that likely the reason you want to be here in person is maybe for better communication, or maybe you can understand better or hear better. Like I said, your chair's still here and you're welcome to come. So we'll move down the list. Commissioner Howard, go ahead.
I haven't been to any meetings, of course, since the stay-at-home orders, but the only thing I had to report before this all started, we were looking at a sawmill coming into the Williamsburg area. That has been slowed down a little bit because of the COVID-19, but I was told yesterday that there's a meeting next week. That's still moving forward, that they still plan on coming. It's just got delayed a little bit because of all this, but it's still going to happen. On the other comment that you just had, Chair Waymire, I agree. I will be calling in on Zoom if we have that choice. I think it's still a little early to jump back into this, and I have had no issue with understanding what's going on through the Zoom process. So I agree with you, and I'll be calling in.
Good deal. Thank you. Commissioner Dunn.
Yes, I had a follow-up from our ECAN meeting the other day. One of the questions ECAN board came up with, the type of work that ECAN does, the liability if they just happen to, one of their clients came down with the virus, what was the liability of the organization? And we went, they investigated through their legal staff, and they said the liability would be small, but anyway, I think our nursing homes and those kind of places are really concerned about the liability of their clients coming down with the virus. So that's a big issue out there with what the liability is for possibly spreading the virus unknowingly. Also, ECAN got a $20,000 grant. It was for Miami County Community Center to help with their operation. And lastly, harvesters, he can't handle the harvesters in Franklin County, and they're going to make two visits a month now. So some good news from ECAN. Other than that, I could just do the Friday meeting over the phone also. That's working out pretty good, I think, and I think we can do whatever we need to do over this kind of communication. That's all I have.
All right. Thank you, Commissioner Dunn. I'll touch back with Commissioner Dickinson and Stottlemyre since the Friday meetings kind of been brought up and addressed subsequently. Commissioner Stottlemyre, did you have anything you wanted to add regard to the Friday meeting?
I understand what Ian is saying, you know, and when we get through all this, and when the public can attend our meeting, when our staff can attend the meeting, I think it's very important that we do have our meeting in that room. At this point, though, I'm all for going ahead with the way we did it today. But I do hope we get very good information and have our questions ready, and I'm all right with the way it is now.
All right. Thank you. Commissioner Dickinson, anything to add?
No, except for with any other decision that the county makes, I bow to your decision and will totally support it.
Okay. No, like I say, if you wish to, you're certainly allowed to come in and have your chair.
Absolutely. Thank you.
All right. Any other questions for commissioners before we look to adjourn? Any other last minute comments from staff? Derek, particularly, have anything?
The only thing I would add, Colton, and it's in addition to something Commissioner Howard brought up, is that sawmill still is very much in the works. Something I don't talk about much is I maintain pretty close contact with Paul Bean, and we are still actually seeing a lot of activity in terms of potential prospects and industry kind of on a higher level. And so this situation has certainly slowed things down, but it's actually, I don't know, the horizon right now is looking really good. And so hopefully we'll have some exciting news as we get past this and move into the future. Thank you.
All right. And with that, I'd look for a motion to adjourn.
This is Don. Motion to adjourn.
All right. Thank you, Don. Is there a second?
Commissioner Dunn.
Commissioner Howard.
All right. Commissioner Dunn has the second. All in favor to adjourn? Say aye.
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 Aye. All right. We're adjourned. Thank you.